What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of a movie that just hit physical media a few days or a week ago called Lover's Lane. It's a movie from 1999, and we're going to get into it right now. So Arrow just put out this movie called Lover's Lane that is a movie that was a slasher from 1999. It was one of those like post-Scream slasher movies that was kind of a throwback to the 80s to me. Even though some of the people who created it say that they was a throwback to like the 50s, I personally feel like because it's in between, it feels like an 80s movie to me. A lot of the dialogue and stuff anyways. But yeah, so this is a slasher movie that just came out. I got like a test print, if you can see here, from, Arrow and MVD Entertainment. They put these out to kind of like just to see what the movie's like. And then I get like all the list of the stuff that's in there. It's basically like the same thing I would get if I were to purchase the Blu Ray, only it's on this disc without the coloring and the books and all that other stuff. As it stands right now, you can get it. It came out on the 25th, and I'll put a link down below for you guys to pick it up if you'd like. But I'm going to kind of explain my thoughts on this movie and let you know what I think of it. But yeah, this is a story about a hooked killer, a legendary hooked killer with a hook hand who essentially gets caught for murdering 13 years ago. And then now, fast forward to present day, which is 1999 or 98, whenever this was made. And the hook killer is back and is killing off a bunch of teenagers again at Lover's Lane, which is, the famous makeout spot that everybody talks about in the 50s and things. Used to be a spot where people would go into the middle of the woods that would usually overlook something in most movies, and it's an old trope that's been around for ages. But yeah, it's a Valentine's Day sort of slasher killer. It's got that 90s feel about it, but a lot of that 80s acting and writing. Some of the dialogue and the acting is played straight and not meant to be funny, where the 90s were kind of like, hey, let's be silly and funny and wacky. They kind of toned that down in this one. There are some funny moments in the film, but it is for the most part done in a very serious matter, and that kind of makes it a so bad it's good film in a way, because it has some overacting and some pretty poor acting in some moments. But for a budget indie slasher that's trying to be like something of the old days, it really does a good job of mimicking those old days and feeling like a movie that is from the 80s. So there's something to be said about that. Now, there is a twist at the end that is kind of an updated version, of some slashers that we get. It is a rather fun slasher, but some of the acting... First of all, the movie starts off with a police officer who's in the car with his daughter and takes her to a murder scene of the child's mother that he doesn't know. And yeah, not a good idea to bring a child to a murder scene. And then his breakdown on that moment was pretty terrible. Now, it's not all terrible. There is some obvious like 90s feel to this in like the school and like some of the behavior, but it's all written in like that style of like an older style. Like I said, this is one of the movies that has Anna Faris in it, which is one of her first movies before she broke out in the whole Scary Movie franchise. She's in this. She doesn't have the biggest acting role in it, but she's one of the cheerleaders in the role, and she has a few standout moments in the film involving a hook, and I won't say where or what. I really kind of enjoyed this one. It's not like the highest echelon of slashers. It's an indie slasher, and a lot of these you have to give a little bit of leeway for, because they're just fun. Like one of my favorite slashers is Madman. And it is not perfect, but, the schlockiness and the silliness of it kind of make it a lot of fun. And it's really nice to see that there's a 1999 film that can mimic that in some ways, because it just feels like a nostalgia thing, but it's not really that nostalgia grabbing. It's not like how they do movies these days where it's so on the nose that you got so much nostalgia. It's more of just kind of like hitting some of the same beats, some of the same tropes, the style of the writing, like I said, you know, so that's kind of an important thing in a slasher. I feel like authentically it needs to be there. And yeah, the schlockiness is going to be there anyway, just because that's the typical slasher. Not all slashers are as cheesy and schlocky, but this one is, and I think because of that, it actually makes it somewhat entertaining to watch. Now, I usually scale things on like an S big scale or the so bad is good scale, which is usually a little bit more forgiving, a little bit higher than your regular scale. Like most movies that are pretty terrible still can be entertaining, and there's some value in having a laugh at it or with it or just drinking some beer with your friends. And I think this is one of those. So, you know, it's not the bloodiest movie that's out there. It's not the best practical effects slasher I've ever seen, but it has the heart of a good slasher. I don't know. It's not as like graphic as some of the slashers you might have seen, but I still think if you're a slasher fan, this is one that you might want to pick up. I mean, the DVDs were going for like $100, $40, you know, back in the day because they didn't really print that many and it became kind of a rarity. So Arrow put this out, give it the treatment, which I think if you get an earlier copy, it comes with like a booklet, and some of the extras on this are pretty decent too. They kind of sat down with like one of the actors and like a producer and the writer and the director and stuff, which by the way, the director of this film is not really like in like horror or anything like that, but the guy who wrote it, actually, there's two people, by the way. There's Jeff Miller, who did Deep Star 6 and House 4, which, yeah, I know, not the best house. Not the best house movie by a landslide, but also Rory Veal did this as well. Now, the director of this movie is John Stephen Ward, who did a sort of like an action drama film that was kind of mainstream called Equal Impact, and then a few other things that I've never really even heard of. You know, the team effort that they put together on this, they had like 14 different rewrites and stuff like that on it. And they talk about that in the extras in here, which is pretty cool. Talk about a lot of the way the film got made and how it was just kind of sitting around and they wanted to make a movie really bad and they just weren't getting the funding or the support that they needed. And they came up with this script and they decided to fund it themselves. And they made a pretty fun little movie. I would give this probably a 6 out of 10 on the S-Big scale. It's easy to watch. It's fun and ridiculous in a lot of ways. There are some silly, just over-the-top acting moments that really kind of push you through entertainment-wise to have a laugh with and just kind of have fun with, like, who did it? Like, what is involved? Why is everybody dying? And by the end, you'll have kind of a twisty thing that is familiar, but not the same as I've seen. Kind of different. Grab some beer, grab some pizza, pick yourself up Lover's Lane if you're interested. I know not everybody's a slasher fan, but if you are and you haven't seen this, you might want to pick it up. I have a link down below from MVD Entertainment Group, who sent me out this copy. They do distribution for Arrow, and I thank you very much. They're a wonderful team that supports this channel a lot. So consider buying from them because they do help people like me who are trying to help you guys find some of your favorite movies of all time. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this movie are. Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? I'm still catching up on a lot of the different movies that I haven't caught in over the years. You know, you see these movies on the shelf, but you never picked them up as a kid, or, you know, you just never got to see them. And this is one of them, and I'm kind of glad I got to see it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And as always, long live the void.